Be it resolved.
Hello, and welcome to Be It Resolved, your weekly debate podcast. We have fun, it's lighthearted, and it's informal, but we try to make serious arguments as well. So, my name is Andrew Wood, and allow me to introduce my co conspirators. We've got Sarab Sandhu and Mario Karakidis and Al Brown. Okay, well, welcome, gentlemen and viewers, especially. We've got what we think is an interesting topic for you today. It's not topical on top of the news, but still, I think it's an important societal question. So, be it resolved that 1 year of public community service should be mandatory for young people upon graduation from high school or college. So, arguing for this proposition will be myself and Mr. Brown, and arguing against the proposition we have Mario and Sarab. Now, just to remind you before we start that the views expressed, while expressed with passion, are not necessarily our personal convictions. So, allow me to get the debate started. Be it resolved that 1 year of public community service should be mandatory for young people. I really do think that this is the way to go for society. I just, because there are so many reasons why I just believe that this would help a lot, because young people nowadays think about the way they're growing up. They're indoors the whole time. They're often isolated by themselves or just with their siblings. Screen time is off the charts. They just don't have the time to get out into the world or the occasion to get out into the world and develop community and develop responsibility within themselves and working with their friends and neighbors, and a community service program for graduating 18 to 21-year-olds here in Canada, I think would go a long, long way towards helping people develop the maturity and the sense of responsibility that they need to propel themselves into adulthood. Now, I'm thinking of something that would take on the character of national service, and something that would be a matter of pride and not just a matter of duty for young people to do. My thoughts about this is that it would get people outside and in the public, maybe in programs such as we used to do here in Canada a generation ago with Katimavik. And Katimavik still exists. They have a website. It's a charity now, but it's the kind of thing that I'm talking about. And I just want you, if you can see this on the screen, it offers young adults opportunities to gain life skills and work experience while contributing to community development through volunteerism. And there's a team of young people who have been taking advantage of it. Well, you know what? we're not talking about volunteerism. We're talking about giving people a job for a year. A paid job that would be $15 or minimum wage at least, and getting them started on the road to life with teamwork, responsibilities, and actual physical work in the community. That's my opinion. Thank you. So, Mario, arguing against this.
Well, thank you very much, Andrew, and welcome everybody. And we are against the argument of mandatory community service, and the active word is mandatory. The problem with being mandatory is that what will happen is you're forcing people into something that perhaps they don't want. And with community service, the idea is to inspire. And I agree with Andrew's points that he had shown up, that it creates fellowship, it creates a sense of community, it adds value to community to give that service, but you want to have to give it from your heart. Because if it's forced upon you through a mandate that tells you, yes, you're going to have to do this in order for you to be able to graduate into the working environment, even if it's paid, it makes no sense. Because people are in jobs that they already hate sometimes, and now you're going to force them to do a community service that perhaps they're not, they don't want it to be. community service from its essence is to allow people to want to do it, and it creates benefits. Absolutely. I'm not arguing against community service because it creates benefits. It creates psychological well-being to help people that are in need. It lowers crime rates when you're helping needy people, being able to elevate them. It allows people to within themselves to feel physiologically better by releasing endorphins for helping people out there. But you are going to counter that with a mandatory thing because it's a forced thing. If you're being forced, all of a sudden you're not being, allowing yourself to feel the positivity that comes out of that. It is more of a sense of using internship in a pseudo-paid way to do it, which we all know is a euphemism for unpaid labor or low-wage labor. Folks, it's time that we try to reinvent society in a way. In fact, what we saw in schools was that that when you looked at mandatory service versus voluntary, the differential between the two long-term service was only 8%. So non-voluntary, 43%, with voluntary, 51%. And that's come from the National Survey of Giving and Volunteering and Practicing. That alone shows you that it doesn't work because the differential should have been a lot more if it was mandated. I'm going to pause here because of time and we can continue the argument afterwards.
Thank you, Mario. Let's pass the argument back to Al Brown. Al?
Hey, viewers, you'll notice that all of us have a fair amount of gray hair, or we're follically challenged because of our age. We grew up in a different time, a time when people or families were a lot different. It was a time when we had multi-generational families with grandparents and parents and children all living together, possibly aunts and uncles in the same neighborhood, people congregating. All of that led to people, or the young people, gaining experience with aspects of the community that they just don't get anymore. Grandparents are shunted off to long-term care homes. Children spend all their time looking at viewing screens. They don't know where their food comes from. I grew up on a farm, and I know where my food comes from. It comes from farmers. All of this is experience that has been lost to the current generation of young people that's coming up. Actually, it's been lost for the last generation as well. And this has a toll on individuals, because if you don't experience this, you don't appreciate what you have. If you don't appreciate what you have, you tend to ignore it or disregard it. What we are talking about is getting young people engaged again in all sorts of activities. Now, they don't all have to do the same thing. If a year of community service could include a year of military training, or a year of working in a far-off isolated community, helping people out, or it could be a year working in a long-term care home. It could be any number of things, but the entire idea is to get people out there and involved in the community and the things that they don't see today. On top of that, there are a lot of young people that don't really know what they want to do in their life. They grow up watching a computer screen, and what do they want to do? I don't know, maybe make more computer games or stuff. Well, that's not life. Life and reality is the world outside our front door, away from our computer screens. And there's a lot of things going out there that we just miss. And we of the older generation, we recognize that. We have fond memories of the past. I have fond memories working on the farm with my father and my brother, throwing bales of hay 20 feet in the air. I got pretty strong from that too. Now, I don't suppose that the younger generation will do that, but there are opportunities. Maybe some of them would like to reconnect with the land. There's all these opportunities out there that are going begging right now. And we need to have the younger generation reconnect to the land. Mayor Andrew, back to you.
Well, thank you, Al. Okay, Sarab.
Yes, thank you all, and
for all of you and my opposition. What I'm saying is I agree with you that we should have community service, but it shouldn't be mandatory. It should be, as my colleague said, it should be your choice. Now, I want to take you back to my shipping days. Now, to become a ship's captain, you had to become an apprentice first. Now, apprentice was the start of a community service, which is forced. It was mandatory. You had to do that. You had to clean toilets, you had to chip the deck, paint the deck, do everything, whatever a sailor is supposed to do at fraction of the cost. You didn't get any money, but it was part of your training. So, and now what happens is when you do that, the sailors who were supposed to be on board, they were not required. So the unions didn't like it. But as a cadet, you were doing all what the sailors did, but you did it for nothing because it was part of your training. So when you have mandatory service, you may like it or you may not like it, but it is essential to go further. Then it's like a misuse when you don't pay them enough and you don't get the objectives right. But I'm not saying I disagreed. I remember you actually, we cleaned the hold once. We cleaned the hold and it took us 12 hours. We cleaned it for the next cargo and we came back. Our dinner wasn't ready. They used to treat us like crew, but actually we were cadet officers. So we ensured that we had somebody to serve us meals and everything when we came back from the hold when we were dirty. But we had the services restored. But mandatory is not the way to go. It should be optional and it should be beneficial to the person who is doing it and to the society around it. But of course, I'm talking about a small community on the ship, which is the ship's crew and the officers and the crew. But out in the society, how are you going to engineer that? That it has to be mandatory. Yeah. That has to be seen to be more effective. Back to you.
Okay, well, thank you very much, Al and Saurabh. Now we're going to go into 5 minutes of round robin here, and I'd like to get the round robin started because I very much appreciate actually our opponents here, Al, that they've spent a good part of their time extolling the value of community service. So we all agree here that community service is a very useful thing. Now let's talk about the mandatory part because that seems to be the crux of this particular debate. Well, we make school mandatory. We make high school mandatory. We have deemed as a society that a person is not ready to enter into complete citizenship and become a contributing member of society until they've completed that requirement, grade 12. Well, we're adding a year. And we think that this is another requirement that should be, just as accepted and just as integral part of society as the other. And that's because this is the year where the young students are going to grow up, where they're going to discover what it means to help in the community. And as Al said, it could be many different things. And so there's something for everyone, but it should be compulsory. And it should become part of your resume. Your high school experiences on your resume, your community services on your resume.
Andrew, although I agree with you, and nobody's here is arguing whether or not it's a value. Of course, community service is a value. That argument is very much a given, okay? The fact what isn't a given is the mandatory aspect of it, because your argument about schools being mandatory and all that, you're dealing with underage at that point where I agree with you. The skill sets haven't been built yet to be able to be autonomous and in many ways self-aware. But when you actually start becoming an adult, which will be at the either at the onset of adulthood or in adulthood if you do it after university, people at that point are smart enough and able enough to feel inspired to do it, not mandated to do it. And how do you inspire? You do it through a community service, through a community example of the elders, of the people out there who actually volunteer their time. Yeah. Personally, I'm volunteering my time at Toastmasters, at Project BMON, and at the Heart and Stroke Foundation, all as a speaker trainer, or a master of ceremonies for the event, and a board member. These are the things that we all
People
do.
don't know what they want, Mario. Young people don't know what they want. It's our responsibility as adults to show them what they want and to make responsible decisions for them. And at this point, they're still forming their personalities, and we're doing them a favor to get them out into the remote communities if that's where they wish to do their
At
service,
17
or
and 18
into
year olds,
the homeless shelters, whatever it might be.
17 and 18-year-olds don't know what they want, at least from offering community service. Are you serious with that?
Well,
Or
I've seen
university kids in their 20s, mid-20s, adults?
mid-20s we're not talking about. We're talking about people upon the point of graduating from high school, and they're still looking for their place in life, and they're still looking for their direction. And this will actually help them because it will give them a stronger idea of their strengths and their abilities, and they'll have a lot more confidence after this year of service, and they'll make better choices going forward in their mature lives.
So you force
If you
labor
don't
on
make
them.
if you don't make such a program mandatory, a lot will probably try and opt out of it because that's just the nature of people. Everybody does the minimum that is required to get by. So if you say it, if it's not mandatory, then you got a problem. The other thing that I think Andrew has mentioned, that this would be paid work at minimum wage. A lot of young people today graduate from school with no job prospects, and they end up in the great unemployed. We give them a job, we give them experiences. They may have to go to a farm and shovel cow manure, but they're getting paid minimum wage. Hey, I remember when I was growing up, when I got my first job off the farm, and I grew up on the farm, the guy was impressed that I was working on a farm because he knew that I was a hard worker. So anybody that goes out and works for a year on a farm, they will gain very good job skills and experience, and they'll probably have a better time finding a job.
Yeah, they used to call that chain gangs at one point, I think, right?
Oh, come on,
No.
give me a break. Give me a
Hey,
break.
wait a minute, community service, right? You're paying your.
No, come on. Manacles and chains, that's exactly what, no, don't go there. That's not fair. Manacles and chains, give us a break. I mean, okay, no manacles, no chains. Do we, Saurabh, do you want to throw something in, or do you want to move to your summation? Because we have 1 minute to 90 seconds for a summation.
The only thing I would like to say is I agree with exactly what you all are saying, but I don't agree with the mandatory part to make it a sort of a force. We have to go over the hunch. You should do it because there's an advantage of that, which you can gain out of it. And this should come from within them, that we want to be part of this project because it gives us some benefit, rather than making it mandatory without their consent. Otherwise, the benefit of doing community service is great because it gives you an idea on how to live in community and see the problems there are. There are many things you can do now regarding cleaning up the environment, working in some, as a co-op somewhere in some factory, talking to people. So all these are important to improve your self-confidence, but it should come from within, not mandatory. That's what I'm saying.
Thank you. Okay, Al, can we have your final thoughts?
Well, Andrew, I'd like to thank Saurabh for bringing up an issue I think that is extremely important in our age, and that is working with the environment. I wouldn't mind seeing, as a term of community service, young people going up and cleaning up all the garbage that's lying in public places. There's a little creek near me that's full of garbage, plastic bags, masks, bottles, all sorts of garbage. Now, young people have a tendency to throw garbage away. They don't think about it. Well, maybe if they had to pick that up for a whole year, that would give them a sense that maybe this isn't quite right to throw their bottles and stuff all over the place. Mm-hmm. There's a lot of things that young people do not learn when at the moment that we learned as when we were growing up, and they need it now more than we do. Andrew.
Yes, thank you. Okay, Mario, how would you like to finish?
Ladies and gentlemen, if this was an argument about doing community service and only doing community service, I think we would all four of us would be in agreement, because we do see the value in it. It does instill a sense of purpose in everything that people will do. It sends a sense of responsibility, sense of compassion. That is not the argument, though. The argument is mandatory versus non-mandatory or voluntary. Again, our argument is that the differential between in statistics in 2000 that were done, and then later on too, still substantiate the fact that the benefit, long-term benefit, is not there to mandate it. An 8% differential is hardly enough evidence to show that mandating does anything other than the fact that making people forcefully go into something that they may or may not want to do. The idea is to inspire the change within people to want to do it, because they see the value that they're going to be adding into society, to see the training that they're going to get out of it for future training in life, that they can actually apply that to their own lives and their own growth into the growth of their society. That's where it is. Inspire, don't mandate.
Thank you, Mario, and I appreciate that. I'm going to, Rob, I'm going to wrap up the thing here, but you know what? I appreciate everything you say there, Mario, but we are going to get those kids inspired just as much as you're going to do it. Otherwise, we're going to get them inspired by making it mandatory in the same way that they have to do the other things in society that we expect them to do. That we expect them to become literate and numerate. We expect them to finish school. Now, not everybody does, and undoubtedly there would be cases where young people aren't able to, or there's some kind of exemption, I assume. But long run, what we're talking about doing is changing society where this kind of thing is expected. It's expected by the young people themselves, and more than expected by them, welcomed by them as an opportunity. And you don't do that in a year or 5 years. You do that by changing society over time. So that's my vision, making it an integral part of who we are, that 1 year of service. And I would even make it optional to sign up for a second year for kids if they wanted to do that. I just think it would be transformative for society. Okay, and that's how we're going to finish that. Now, Sarab, did you want to say something here before we wrap it up? And
I wanted to say that at present moment, the prisoners who are in the prison, it's mandatory for them to clean up the environment and help the society. So that's what's going to happen when you have mandatory, because it will be forced.
Well, okay.
Okay, automatically, everybody goes to jail. All the young people, they graduate from school, they go to jail,
Okay.
and then they work.
Yeah, okay.
That's
not what we're talking about. In any case, you know what? Thank you for that, gentlemen. That was a lively debate, much appreciated. And I hope it got our viewers thinking about the question at least. And what would your position be on it? Okay, well, we're done for today, but you're going to want to take a look at our next debate, because we're going to have a very, very important topic, and we're going to decide, be it resolved, that the tooth fairy is real. That's our topic next time. We're looking forward to that. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen, and bye for now.
Bye, everybody.
Bye. Thank you for listening, and please subscribe so you do not miss another episode. Thank you. Thank you for listening, and please subscribe so you do not miss another episode. Thank you.